purpose of the brain is to keep us alive. That's number one thing. In order to do that, it constantly predicts. There's what's called a prediction error.
Like, I didn't have a lot of anxiety until I had my miscarriages.
So people with anxiety actually have an impairment of that prediction error. All right. Hello, hello, hello. We're talking about anxiety today.
Yay.
And it's going to be really cool because anxiety is not triggered by one event that happens actually to us. It's actually a prediction error. It's the way the brain functions. So we're going to dive into this. I'm Heike Fallon. I'm a personal high performance coach, and I coach my clients to master their self-leadership with a brain-based approach, and anxiety fits right into all of this.
Mm-hmm. And I'm Shannon Passalacqua. I too am a high performance coach, and I specialize in helping women heal after miscarriage. And there is a lot of anxiety that goes into healing after a miscarriage. So this will be interesting.
There has been a lot of more research out and a little bit of shift on how things really function. And the thing is, the old concepts are still out there, and it's slowly, understood more and better. So we're going to go in there, and I'm going to try my best to express that very clearly. So let's start first with what is anxiety, right? So feeling anxious, like worried and the fear of something is normal. We all have that, because let me go like one step back. The way the brain functions, the whole purpose of the brain is to keep us alive. That's number one thing. And in order to do that, it constantly predicts. Like even right now, my brain is literally in the split second predicting what's going to happen. What might you say that, that I'm going to have to answer, respond to? Just alone the light in the room right now, the being in front of a computer. My brain right now is predicting what is going to happen. And that's how it's keeping us alive. So it's constantly predicting. And in order to predict, it gets information. And the information comes, as I said, from the outside. So through our senses, our eyes, ears, temperature in this room. It's kind of warm here today, which is kind of not making me feel good. So all information coming in from the outside world, but more importantly, from the inside, which is called interoception. So how we're feeling inside. So I'm mildly tired, so that has an impact on how I'm feeling right now. My heart rate, like I said, my temperature, that's an inside feeling as well. And so all that information external, so from that, we call that exteroception, and internal, so the interoception, and memory is part of the inside too, like memories, things that happened to us before. Because if I've had a event happening before, and it might be that I'm not even aware of it. It's like sometimes we can have events happening when we were a child and we don't even consciously remember, but our brain stored that memory. So in an absolute fast, crazy speed, the brain puts all that information together and predicts. And when the prediction is like, oh, I'm safe here, I'm talking to my friend Shannon, it's a good conversation, things are good, I know you, we've had lots of conversations, so my prediction is this is going to be a fun conversation. Versus, and then it gets, in the moment, the way we respond, I get validated, and so there's feedback, and so I'm getting actually my prediction being correct, right? Like so far, you're not screaming and yelling at me because you haven't done that so far. I'm not predicting. But let's say, because we are at a different, where we don't know exactly, I don't know what you know about anxiety, so I'm excited to hear what you know, because you've read a lot. But it could be that I'd be like, I'm not sure. I'm expecting it being smooth, but let's say, I'm expecting it like, oh, this could be really scary because I don't know how Shannon reacts to me saying all these things, right? And now I'm getting nervous a little bit because I'm predicting something that I don't know. Maybe you're not, but I'm in my head predicting that this could be a challenge because normally we are, I don't know where you are on the science part. On other topics, I knew exactly where we were because we had conversations before. So my brain might be going like, I don't know, maybe she throws me some curveball of something I haven't heard, and now I have to react, and this is recorded, So
so I have a question.
What happens then? One second. What happens then is there's what's called a prediction error. Right? There could be an error happening. So and an error can happen all the time. So I get validated. Okay, you're going like, no, we're all fine. I'm like, okay, good. So that corrected it a little bit. The problem is when that arrow, like the arrow should happen and then it kind of adjusts itself and we move on. The problem is when it's not actually fixed. The prediction error is not well. And so people with anxiety actually have an impairment of that prediction error. They first of all, possibly not predicting well, or too extreme in certain ways, and then the process of validation of the prediction and what happens, there's some mismatch happening for them. And that's really when anxiety, when we're talking about really anxiety.
Do you think that would be a overanalyzing situation? Like, hey, I overanalyze, or is that just kind of
it's part of it, right? Because it's part of that prediction. So somebody who just quickly predicts isn't spending the time on the thinking, right?
Right.
So,
well, okay, so I'm going to explain.
Yeah.
Like, I really didn't have a lot of anxiety until I started having my miscarriages. And I know this is true for some people. And I know a lot of women that I have coached, if they have more than one miscarriage, or they have one miscarriage and they, they're very anxious through their, following pregnancies. And very often they have had anxiety in the past. But what I'm talking about is, like, I didn't have a lot of anxiety until I had my miscarriages. And then anytime I got pregnant after my first miscarriage, my anxiety was through the roof.
So So what happens is all this, and we've talked in other episodes about it, it's really your body budgeting, like your energy budgeting. And so when you have events happening, your energy production might be interrupted or compromised, which we talked about mitochondria before, right? So those structures that are small structures that are in every, like pretty much in every cell, a lot of cells, let's say it that way, that are in charge of energy production. And if that is part of our interoception, so things can be off due to that, which alone hormone changes, right? Yeah. Can produce, like, hormone changes, lower estrogen level, as going through some premenopause, menopause stuff, but even for guys too, not just women. So any changes there. So estrogen levels have an impact on mitochondria, and so that's on the health of, like, or the because they constantly die and rebuild and stuff, and that's another. We're not going to go into that too much. We
will.
I talked in other episodes. I did talk to a nutritionist, an interview, but fact is that these cells are one component of us being healthy and also having the information coming from within the interoception. And so just alone estrogen level can change your system, and then information might be different. So a miscarriage being a huge shift in hormones from one to another.
That's the thing that I try to talk to my women about is it's not just the grief, and the grief is enough, but your hormones are just up and down and out of control. And so that's going to cause a lot of anxiety and emotions as well. So it's because managing many things.
Yeah, because your body budgeting system is out of whack.
Yeah.
Your body budgeting system is out of whack when you're stressed. So people, or when you didn't sleep enough. So people also feel a little more anxious when they didn't sleep enough, or they under a lot of stress, that anxiety comes up more because of their body budgeting system is out of whack.
So which one comes first, the chicken or the egg?
That is such a good question. Which one comes first? See, that's the thing. It's sure, we're born to a, like, genetic is definitely a component as well, 100%, but not just all the way. But it's our environment, and it's how we grow up. It's about things that we experience. Again, memory matters. So it's all, the interoception really matters a lot more on how we predict. And so therefore you can say what happens first is the internal information coming to the brain, because it's how it predicts.
But what if it's your hormones that are messing that up?
That's still from the internal. So it's not an outside event that starts it. It's your level of being able to predict is gone down.
Okay. So what do we do about it?
We work on our body budgeting system on our level. So there's lots of exercises we can do, a lot of strategies we can do. Like we talked about in other episodes. Sleep is a big one, because mitochondria rebuild and do a lot of stuff overnight. But it's not like we sleep and nothing happens. Actually, overnight during sleep, that's when the rebuild, rejuvenation, all that happens. for our brain and body. And it's that cellular level, that those mini structures in there, the mitochondria, they call it also the powerhouse because they do the energy production. And if you don't get good sleep and good quality, quantity sleep, the 7 to 9 hours, regular sleep, then you are compromising them. And
well, I think something else, and I always talk about it because I think it is so fundamental, is going on walks. And not just on a treadmill. The interesting sciencey part about it is when you're going on a walk and your brain, your eyes are taking in information. Your eyes are going like this when you're walking, right? It's taking in information from all over the place and it's going like this. And that's how EMDR was created.
Yep. So the thing is,
and that helps with trauma. So if you're going through something difficult, going on a walk, one, you're releasing energy, right? And you're getting your exercise, but also you're processing the stress.
Yes, and I love that you talk about the eyes. So in the hierarchy of survival, as we call it, the eyes and the inner ear are actually higher for survival for us than our proprioceptive system. So how we move in space. So our movement is really not that important. So I always explain it like, hey, if you broke your leg, you still function great. You know, if you all of a sudden can't, you know, if you like have vertigo, you know, you're not
worse.
That would be the extreme example of inner ear issues, right? You're not doing so good. The other thing is people that get car sick easily usually have vestibular, so the inner ear, some kind of need some work on that. But so you're okay. I mean, with, you know, vertigo, you lie down, but you still can have conversation. You can still talk. You can still see what could, if something attacks you, so to speak.
Yeah, maybe.
Say the tiger coming around the corner. But when you're not seeing, that is the highest threat. You're like, if you're not, unless of course, yes, somebody who is blind and learn to use other senses, yes, we can learn. But if you all of a sudden can't see, that's a huge threat if you try to go out in traffic and you can't see. Right. You know, if you're feeling a little car sick or nauseous or something like that, or with vertigo, yeah, it's difficult, but you'll make it across the street and more likely you'll be still seeing the car. If you can't see, it's very difficult. So in the hierarchy, the eyes are the most important. And so we can train the eyes because it has muscles. So when we look here and here, so different muscles move the eyes. So when you actually do eye exercises, that can help.
I saw something interesting. I can't remember if I talked about this with you. I saw something interesting about playing Tetris after something traumatic. If you play Tetris for like 10 to 15 minutes after something traumatic, it helps your brain process, again, because it's like the EMDR with the eye movement. It's helping your brain. Do they really know why EMDR works?
Well, I don't want to go all into that.
I know.
Okay. I just thought that was interesting. Too, what I want to say, because I would love to give a practical tip. So one thing is what actually helps too, what happens with vision too, is we have the focal vision, right? So when we're looking on one spot, and the peripheral vision, right? And so when somebody is a little bit more anxious, it can help to actually, you can use the visual system to kind of focus, because when we focus, it also focuses our thoughts. So if your thoughts go all over the place, you don't want to be in a big space, because that's not helping narrowing it down. You might actually do a simple thing. You had a pen. I don't have a pen here, but I use my finger. But literally just staring at your finger, or a pen is better because you want one specific spot, can help that focal point and can help actually the system to focus. And it's good to combine that if you know, anxious, to like with some affirmation or some kind of positive phrasing, positive talk to combine. So if you're super anxious, just doing that won't do it. But it can be, if you do it early and you feel like your thoughts are going crazy, you can totally utilize your vision and in combination with some positive talk to kind of center yourself. And
would you use that in a anxiety attack?
You would have to, yes, I have with people, but they have trained it first when they're not.
Right.
So that you can't all of a sudden, if you are in an anxiety attack, now I can't speak for it. I haven't had one where it completely, where I would classify it as an attack, but I do know people and experienced them while I was with them. You can't just like start learning something new in the moment.
Yeah. Because that's
most of the time. But if you train certain exercises and do different things when you're feeling okay, then doing that, because then also the brain remembers at that moment, oh yeah, I've done that when I felt great. And the brain remembers it's not just the exercise, but the brain will remember too. I did this exercise, I would recommend those people do it. Yeah. If you love the beach, do it at the beach. And actually, while you're doing the exercise, also take in how you feel in that moment. Because at the end of the day, when we are in an anxiety attack, things are like what happens, all the internal information is out of whack. It's like your heart rate is super high and fast and things are, you can feel that, right? And if you train certain exercise, like let's say this pencil push-up, we call it, or it's just a gaze if you hold it. But if you do that, let's say on the beach where it's your favorite spot and you in the moment really take in all the sensation of that moment, you save that as a memory. And if you do that then in an attack, then the brain will, and you visualize you sitting on the beach, the waves and, the whole thing. And you visualize in that moment while you're doing this and all that, you can actually calm your system down. But as is anything, it's practice. You gotta work on it. But that's how you overlap what happens, because at the end of the day, you want to change the input to the brain in that moment. And so goal is usually also learn a little bit more understanding the different signals that come from inside, because oftentimes we just chunk certain feeling altogether in anxiety, or we label it anxiety right away. And people that don't even have true anxiety attacks call it already anxiety when they're not, yes, you might be feeling a little anxious, but that doesn't mean you have anxiety disorder. That's when you're really, anxiety disorder is really when you're impaired to do something.
Right.
And lots of people label themselves already in a way that then we don't have enough differentiation between different feelings. So it's very important to know I'm like, okay, checking in, I'm like, how am I really feeling? And why is this happening right now? Is it because, I'm tired right now? Or is it really because of all the overthinking? Why am I all overthinking that? And then sometimes doing, for example, breathing drills are good drills too, for calming the nervous system down, to just, or as we talked before too, take yourself out of the environment you're in and do something. Great is movement. That's why walks are great too, because once you get into another different, like we always say, change your physical state will change your mental state. So if you go outside, walk, move, do something very different, or just even not being in that room you're in, but actually just
a different place.
Scenery. Even if you can't go outside, change the scenery. And move, because the movement will also give different internal information to the brain, which again, all help. Now it's all, and with all that, everybody's different. So it's not, somebody might find, oh my God, if I go walk outside, bam, that's it for me. Somebody else might go like, you know what, I just need to do this breathing drill, visualization. And that's the thing that works for me. There's no one size fits all, but you have to kind of learn.
And it won't always, something that works in the past may not work at that time, right? So it may be like having just a handful of things that you can turn to that, okay, if this one doesn't work, this one will work. I also think what's very important is monitoring and setting boundaries about what you're bringing into your brain, what the input is. Because when we wake up and first thing in the morning, we check the news, or we're watching the news all day, or we're just kind of surrounded by negativity, that is going to increase our anxiety, and it's going to kind of just slowly build up, right? So what I have found, and we talk about gratitude a lot, and I don't want to downplay anxiety, and I don't want to downplay depression, be like, oh, all you have to do is write 3 things that you're grateful for. It's not that. I think it's retraining your brain to notice more positivity and be grateful, be in a grateful state, instead of being in a negative state and bringing in negativity through social media or through the news or whoever you're surrounding yourself with. So just, I think, really focusing on, okay, when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to write the things I'm grateful for, or just focusing on thoughts that are coming to your mind. Because I find myself, I wake up, I'll turn my phone and be like, okay, what's news? And that immediately puts me into a bad mood.
Because it depletes your budget right there. So love that you say it's because, okay, first off, anybody who goes like, the positive talk, I've tried, that didn't work. Well, guess what? It's a skill.
And it takes so much time.
It takes time to learn. And one time doing it in the moment is not going to do it. You have to really look at this very holistically. I even say, like, the people I coach, some of them have also a therapist, and they're implementing other strategies. If when you really want to change something, you need to look at it holistically from different angles. And other habits matter. Like I said, it's not the moment where you feel anxious during the day. Your sleep matters, your diet matters, your gut function matters, the routines
what you're putting into your brain.
Yep, the routines that you have in place, like morning routine, evening routine, and knowing that, what drains you, what takes energy.
Yeah.
And what we said also
and
earlier,
what brings you energy.
And what brings you energy. All of those things matter to really balance the body budget. And as I said earlier, is strategies to, essentially, it's all strategies to have a healthy mitochondria, which again is the powerhouse of our energy production. So if we're depleting too much with draining our energy, those cells get damaged and are not good, because it stresses out already. And then you get in that cycle, and to break it, you have to really address it holistically. So go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think it's really important to work on it before there's something that triggers something, right? Like, work on it before there's a problem. So when you're feeling good, start then. So that, and we're all going to have stressful situations in our life. They come and go all day long, every day. And so when something hits us, we know, okay, well, I'm in this routine. I'm going to be able to handle this better.
But as I said in the beginning, that hitting us is us predicting
incorrectly.
That there's a mismatch happening here in our prediction of how we feel with what's going to happen. Now, again, that is good because it's supposed to keep us alive. So there are times, something happened where we should freak out and take it in like, there's something, coming at me and it could hurt me. I should freak out and run. It's supposed to cause anxiety. It's supposed to make me feel like urgency and take action, and I better run because, whatever, the car is out of control coming at me. I better take that, and I'm going to be anxious and get out of there. Versus if I'm, if the cars are stopped at a light and I see them all stopped, I should not be anxious crossing the street because I see them all stopped, right? It's the question is, at the moment, to really realize, what is my prediction here? What is really going on? To practice that too, when you start feeling, a little bit that uncertainty and that unsettled, to go like, what am I really afraid of here? What is that really true? Is that really what is really the likelihood, right, of the cars all of a sudden starting and driving, even though they all stopped at the red light and I can cross? What is really, the likelihood? And working, you can work a little bit on a cognitive angle there as well. But also oftentimes, if you in that moment calm the nervous system down, again, with breathing exercises, activating the vagus nerve, there's lots of humming, gargling, rubbing the ears, lots of strategies to activate the vagus nerve, which calms the nervous system down. And when we're not in that fight and flight mode, we can also think better. So it's a good thing to calm the nervous system down. So that's why lots of those exercises can help.
Well, I also think when you know something stressful is going to be coming, preparing yourself. And so like last week we knew we were going to be dealing with something stressful, and I prepared myself, and I did my workouts. I made sure I slept well. I made sure I ate healthy. I journaled, and I did a lot of breath work. And honestly, when the situation came, I was fine.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's because I knew beforehand what to do. So I think it's.
But so you were already working on, what do I do when I'm predicting the worst? So how can I deal with it? So you already went ahead and did some work on that. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
And yes, that helps. So really, and again, it takes sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. It's a skill. It's all about learning that and creating that awareness. And again, also, and that's what we do in coaching, exactly what you did, right? We help our clients with exactly that. How can we prep? How can we have more awareness? What perspectives do I need maybe to prepare really well, right? That's what a coach does. It helps you see other perspectives. But it's also, in general, understanding that you can change the situation, and you need to just really also identify and be a little more, fine-tuning the feelings. Just heart rate up can't just always, it's just one big high, right? So the heart rate can be up because you're running. The heart rate can be up, because you're exercising, is a different feeling than if you're anxious about something coming up versus, so there's a subtle differences, and to learn and feel what the differences are so you get better at it is definitely a component.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wonder though too, one thing I do have where I don't know, I don't have read research about it yet, but I wonder too, and that's something I'm going to throw out there, maybe somebody knows can comment, but I wonder too if people that tend to feel more anxious also kind of, basically learned the skill of feeling anxious.
I believe it is
then your
spiral,
turn, because then you're even more aware of your heart rate, versus other people aren't really. Oh, I don't know.
I do believe that your brain gets trained, and I think there are, it's like training your brain to notice the positive things and be grateful. You can also train your brain to be anxious.
Yeah, so that's I do know that, but I haven't read a specific research study for anxiety on this. But theoretically, we can also overly train, be an overly sensitive.
Oh,
to that.
So then you're anxious about being anxious,
and then you're anxious about being anxious.
Yeah, I get that.
Because I've done that with back then when I really struggled with my sleep. I was starting,
and then you can't sleep.
I was getting anxious about not sleeping, and then I wasn't sleeping. So
that's what I'm talking about, over analyzing situations.
Yeah, so you can't.
So like I'm an over analyzer, and I overanalyze situations, and then I do the same thing. Oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to sleep tonight. Yeah. And I need to get sleep, and it's really important that tonight I get sleep because I have this tomorrow, and then I don't sleep.
So that, but that's what we do, right? As coaches, we help, and I have strategies now how to deal with that, and I teach and coach my clients in those strategies. Right. But I have not read a specific study for anxiety, but I'm assuming and translating over right now that is similar, that we can be getting overly sensitive and then everything, as soon as the heart rate goes slightly up, goes bam,
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
what am I feeling?
Yeah. What am I feeling? So, so I hope this was super informative.
Yeah. I mean, I think it just comes down to, again, learning what works for your body and what works for you, and trying so many different tools, because there are so many different things out there that we have suggested here on other episodes, and learning what works for you. And I mean, if you can't remember them all, because there are a lot, write them down. And if you're feeling anxious, you can look at them and be like, okay, let me try this. I'm going to go gargle, or I'm going to hum.
Yeah. And no, you can change. The biggest thing is start with the mindset. You can. You can manage and change the input and how you respond, and how you predict and how you respond to situation. You can train that. It is like a sport that you train. It does take time, it's a skill.
Muscle.
But the cool part is we can. You're not stuck with it. That's number one thing. So the mindset needs to be definitely in, like, there is possibility to change, because our brain has plasticity and we can change, and we know that now. So that is really the biggest thing to do. So watch any other. We're gonna link probably the I do think the morning routine is a key one.
And sleep.
Start sleep. Yep, those are good ones to watch as far as strategies on that. To manage, just you need to manage everything, like sleep, stress, time,
eating.
It's holistic.
Just go watch all of our.
Watch them all. It's a holistic approach, and but you can change, and that's really important to know. So fantastic. That was a fun thing. Like you didn't scream and yell at me, which I didn't expect.
I do tend to scream and yell.
No. Until next time, I hope this was very valuable, and we'll see you in the next episode.
See you later.